Welcome to On the Couch with Dr. E. I'm your host, Dr. Estrelita Bruce. Second Corinthians 5 and 7 reads, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." What does this really mean? We know that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11 and 1. How do we hope for evidence, which is simply proof or support of the truth of something we do not see? When I think of evidence, I'm looking for something tangible. It's sure proof that it's in front of me, but spiritual evidence, that can sometimes be a challenge. It's a true test to see if we can keep walking with God, even when we don't have anything tangible to show for what we see spiritually. Today is a special segment called the S.H.E Corner, which stands for Shift, Heal, and Encourage, where we highlight some amazing women who will be sharing their S.H.E experience of walking by faith and not by sight. I want to welcome Pastor Tonya Willis and executive coach and creator, Chandra Douglas.
Hello.
Hi, how are you ladies feeling today?
Wonderful. We're feeling great.
Yes,
Feeling great.
Feeling great. Okay. How has your day been?
Busy.
Been busy? You both said busy. Okay.
It's Sunday.
Busy.
It's busy.
Yes,
It's
okay.
been busy. We're church girls.
Yes, church girls and my church people as well. These are my church sisters from Amazing Church. I wanted to have you guys here because I want the audience to know a little bit more about who you are. When I talk about the S.H.E Corner, I thought of you too because S.H.E really does stand for the way that I see it is shift, heal, and encourage. And we all have our kind of S.H.E journey as women. And because we're talking about faith, I think it's important to help the audience understand understand the importance of the faith walk and just be inspired by your stories. So before we get into that, tell us a little bit about more of who you are. Let's start with you, Chandra.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Who am I? I am a lot. No. I now have accepted the executive coach position. You know, it's
Yay.
always been prophesied to me and said, hey, you help entrepreneurs, you help leaders. And so it kind of, what I love about it is that what has been prophesied has actually blended in with my 9 to 5 now. And so my 9 to 5 is helping leaders be amazing, right? Be great, but also just be confident in their leadership. And so that's what I do. And then on the other side of that, I'm a creative. I love everything creative. I love to do whatever makes things beautiful, but also whatever, I like to be behind the scenes and make sure that people understand their giftings, and I support them any way I can in that gift.
Absolutely. And you do. If for those who don't know.
I was just about to say, and that she does.
Thank
That
you.
she does.
Thank
I mean,
you.
everything, you see my logo, my website, freshly from the hands and the
Yeah.
creative hands of
Thank
Chandra.
you.
I knew when I first met her and I saw your work, and it was just so much to just not you being the creative that you are, but just you as a person, such a beautiful
Thank
person.
you.
And it really comes out in your work.
you.
So I really appreciate you
Appreciate
sharing that. Yes, absolutely.
you.
Pastor Tonya Willis, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay.
A little bit, huh?
Just a little.
A little bit. Yes. So who I am is, and I really make this distinction purposefully. Who I am is a child of God, period. What I do is I serve as a wife. I serve as a pastor. I serve as a friend. I serve as an HR leader in an organization. I serve as a coach. I coach around freedom. But who I am is a child of God. I serve in a lot of areas, and I make that distinction very purposefully, because if I don't, you're talking about shift, heal, and encourage. If I don't, that shift wouldn't have happened. So who I am is a child of God.
That's good.
I love that, because I was going to ask you why that distinction. That's so important, because I think a lot of times, especially as women, because we wear so many hats and we have so many different roles and we serve so many different people, like we're natural nurturers, right? And sometimes our identity can be wrapped in what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, my entire life was wrapped in what I do. And what I did for others, what others expected me to be and do. And it was about how I performed. And if I didn't perform well, I wasn't well.
Yeah.
And it was at the point in which God said, none of that really, really don't care about any of that. I want you to know who you are, and that is my child.
So good.
So that's why anytime somebody says, who are you? That is my response.
That
Because
sums it up.
that's who I am. And that's enough.
That is enough.
I think that's the big thing, is that's
Right.
enough. If I don't do anything else right, if I wasn't a wife, I'm still a child of God. If I wasn't a pastor, I'm
Yeah.
still a child of God. If I wasn't a coach, I'm still a child of God. If I didn't have any of those things, being God's child is enough.
So good.
That's powerful. That is so powerful.
Yeah.
Chandra, does it speak to you at all? Because
does.
yeah, tell me in what ways, like especially when she talked about the identity behind what we do and then just being a child of God. How
I
does that speak to
suffered
you?
with imposter syndrome for so long. I think to this day, sometimes I still suffer with that.
Okay.
Because I know God has given me so many gifts, and it's trying to pick and choose which Chandra I want to be today, right? And I've learned that I can't be a people pleaser, and that's what I've always been, is a people pleaser. And I've realized I can't do that. I can't pretend to keep putting on a mask every day, because it takes so much energy to do that. And I had to learn that I have to remove the mask, and I have to be able to learn how to handle my gifts and honor my gifts. Because if I don't honor my gifts, God could quickly take them away, right? If I don't know how to just honor them, and honor them in the fact of, I can't always be yes. It can't always be yes. And I can't always say I'm going to do it. I can't always have restless nights doing,
Right.
working on things or helping others when I'm not helping myself. And so I'm learning that even today, that it's hard. But I love what Pastor Tonya said, is that's the first thing, is I'm a child of God. I'm his daughter. And I have to remind myself that all the time, that I'm his daughter. And no matter what trials or tribulations I go through,
Yeah.
he's put me to the test for a reason.
Right.
And I've been put to that test so I can understand what my giftings can allow me to do, to not only just get me out of that test and pass it, but to help others.
Right. Right.
So definitely it does resonate.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you both mentioned all your life. You mentioned coming to a place of understanding more of who you are, and still sometimes struggling with it. And I could so relate to that sometimes, just like, wait a minute, who am I? And I remember one time I felt like so completely lost. This was when I was living in Houston. I was in my closet and I was crying. I'm like, Lord, I don't know who I am. And he whispered to me through the Spirit, he was like, you can always find yourself in me. Always find yourself. And to me, that was like a safe, oh my gosh, that almost brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
You can always find yourself in me. It's a safe space when so much is going on in the world, when so many people are tugging at you.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot, because you want to feel safe.
Yeah.
You want to feel his arms wrapped around you. And I know, like, for me, it's been times where I will fight, and I will fight not because I don't love him, but it's like, God, why are you pushing me? I'm not ready to go there. I'm not ready to accept. And he's like, but you have to. You have to, you have to accept it. But I'm gonna hold you the whole time, Jan. I'm gonna hold your hand. Don't worry about what's gonna happen, your left or your right. Just keep straight, keep going. And that has taken me time to just accept.
Yeah.
I love that he told you, you can always find yourself in me.
Yeah.
When you said that, I thought of I love the fact that I'm a child of God. So adulting is hard, right?
Hard, yeah.
And we all say we want to go back to being children,
Exactly.
but we never have to stop.
That's good.
We never have to stop. I'm never going to be an adult of God. I'm always going to be a child of God,
That's
which
good.
means when I am tired, I can climb up in my daddy's lap. When I can look at him and see me. You can always find yourself in me.
Yes.
I can go to him, and I don't have to I just have to be. And he's going to love me no matter what.
Yeah.
Because I'm his child. I don't have to have the responsibility. Not that he doesn't challenge me. Not
Right.
that he doesn't give me things to do.
Absolutely.
You two have children.
Yeah.
When you're with they can come to you for anything at any
Right.
time, and you're going to receive them as your child, no matter how old they are.
Yeah.
I am always a child. And it helps to keep me inquisitive. It helps to keep me having fun. It helps to, I always say that when he gives me something to do, I get to play with him. I get to play with what he's doing in the earth. I get the
Yeah.
opportunity to play, and it keeps me in that place of childlike. It helps my faith. It helps, we're talking about faith.
Faith.
And it helps me to stand and walk in faith a lot easier. Not
Yeah.
to say that I don't get challenged, but I
Right,
notice that
right.
when I do get challenged, it's because I'm trying to adult
You're trying to adult.
That's good.
That's
instead of being a child.
that's so
Because
good.
children just, you say you can run up that mountain and they just, oh, okay.
And they do it.
And they do it.
Don't ask questions. Don't think twice.
But adults, we ask why? Why that mountain? Why not this mountain?
I was watching on some social media, those VR things,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I never would put one on, but I saw an adult with one on, and I guess they were walking across some beam in high, and the adult was struggling, right? A child had it on, and I could tell they were doing the same thing, and then the child all of a sudden just leaped. Well, they hit the floor because they don't realize,
Right.
they think they're about to leap off of whatever it is,
Yeah.
but they just leaped.
Yeah.
The adult was so afraid of falling. And when I see things like that, it just reminds me, Tonya, just be his child. Stop trying to be all of the other things. Just be his child.
Yeah.
And from the standpoint of talking about faith, that's what helps me to stay in that place and move back to that place.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's very, very powerful. And I'm sure that those who may be watching today, if you're struggling with your faith, I think it's a great representation. If you have children, or just go back to your own childhood, right? My major was psychology, and one of the first things that we studied was like human behavior, and it talked about the power of play with children, right? And it's a phenomenon that no one could truly understand. Like, why do kids love to play? Why do they have this innate desire to just play, right? It's just this free flowing of just being. And when as I'm talking about it, that's the power behind it.
Yes, it is.
It is just being. And so as we're being children of God, and children, they're very impressionable, right? And you don't want to be impressionable in the wrong hands. But with God, you're always in the right hands. Always in the right hands. And so as we continue to we were children, and as we grow in God, we'll be able to see those impressions upon us as we become adults. And so I think it's just a great reminder for somebody who is struggling in their faith, right? And as you guys are sharing, as Pastor Tonya shared, like, just become more of his child. Just remember who you are in him, not what you do, but who you are. And as we're talking about She Walks by Faith, right? Has there been, we talk about that, the shift. What was some experiences, not the laugh, what was an experience in your life where perhaps you experienced a major shift and that your faith was all that you had?
Wow. It's an easy question. It's hard for me to swallow because that's a testimony for me.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
I've had some issues in the past that I had to deal with, and I didn't have faith that I was going to get out of it. Like, everybody around me had faith. I didn't. I couldn't see on the other side. My shift didn't happen until their faith broke it for me, right? I needed, even Pastor Tonya was one of them. I remember calling her the day that it happened, and she was crying. And I was like, why are you crying? And she was like, you don't understand. This is, right? And others around me, I think for me, I was so hard-headed. I was so hard-headed in thinking, because I was like, there's no other way but down. There's no other way but down. There's no way out of this. There's no way it's going to happen. But everyone around me said, you need to believe, you need to have faith, you need this, you need this, you need this. And I think what I've learned is my shift is that I needed they needed to have that faith for me because I didn't know how to have it. I didn't know how to possess it. Even though we have a faith-filled church, Pastor talks about faith all the time, I wasn't grasping it because I was in the midst of it.
Right, right.
I was in the midst of it,
Yeah.
so I wasn't grasping it until it broke. But I think it broke. I'm not gonna say I think. I know it broke because of the faith that those who love me,
Yeah,
the faith that they had for me,
yeah.
and the faith they had that saying that this is going to happen for you, this is going to break.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, and I saw the love that everyone gave me, even afterwards, it was like, we told you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We told you. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
And so that was a shift for me. That was a
Yeah.
shift of, you got to believe, Chan. Like
Yeah.
it's not always going to be perfect, but if you have enough faith and you believe in it, God is going to see you through.
Listen,
Yeah, go ahead.
This is your show.
No. That's good.
What you're
yeah.
saying reminds
Yes.
me of, do you recall in the Gospels when the friends
I was
brought
just thinking
the paralytic
Yes,
man,
through the- yes.
paralytic, and they climbed up on the roof
On
and
the
they
roof.
tore the roof off, and Jesus said it was their faith who made them whole.
Yeah.
And what I love about that story, not a story, about that history,
Right.
is that even if I don't have the faith, it's why it's so important about who you're around,
Absolutely.
and who you surround yourself with. Even if I don't have the faith, God is so loving and so kind
Yeah.
that He will allow someone else's faith to heal you.
Yeah.
I heard, I think I'm not even sure who it was, but I heard someone say, believe in, I'm going to trust your faith in me, even when I don't have the faith. I'm going to trust, because I trust you enough.
No, trust you enough.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust your faith in me,
Yeah.
even though I might not have the faith in me. So someone else's faith can heal you. And I think we don't ever talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think we hear that a lot. We talk about we have to have faith, and absolutely we do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're just not in that place, but God still has something for you.
Yeah, he covers everything.
good.
No, that was good. I was literally thinking of the same story, and I think it's important to share that because when you're going through a shift, it's so hard.
It is.
A shift is a change, it's a transition. So if you think about us being such creatures of habit and we love our comfort, and anytime, especially God is pulling us out of our comfort zone, or he's testing us, or he wants to build our character or test our integrity, he's like, I need you to move. Or sometimes even if we were to fall or make a mistake, or if he allows certain circumstances to come into our lives and we begin to think like, oh wow, like I wasn't expecting that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that change and transition and shifting is hard, and we're in the throes of it. We experience the intensity of the emotions behind it. And so we're very human. We're having a human experience. And so to bring in the spiritual aspect is sometimes hard. And that is a challenge, especially if our faith hasn't been tested, or perhaps I don't know, or just our faith is not as strong, or God is wanting to get us to that point. And it makes me think about when I lived in Houston, I experienced my complete major loss, and I leaned on my mentor at the moment, and she was just saying to me, like, you're going to get through this. And I'm like, I'm glad that you know, because I don't.
Look, so when you say that, because one thing I love God so much, because what he did for me was when I was in the middle of it, I didn't want to tell anyone, but he told me who I should tell. Because he knew that the ones that I should tell were going to have that faith that I wasn't going to have.
Exactly.
And he loved me so much to give me names and people. And I mean, I think it was out of the blue, I called Pastor Tonya. I was like, hey, let me tell you what's going on. And she was like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You got this. And it was other people that I would call and tell, not even having a close relationship. I just know that God was giving me names because he knew I wasn't going to be able to fight this battle by myself. Even if this the faith battle, because I was in the throes of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Pastor Tonya, what was a
Yeah.
shift moment
So
for you?
mine was when I divorced.
Mhm.
And it was not pretty. So here's why it was such a big shift, because I told you that most of my life I was, about what I do. So
Right.
life looked perfect.
Mhm.
Life looked wonderful. I'm in the church, he's in the church, we're both serving. And for me, that was a failure.
Yeah.
And a failure meant that I was a failure.
Mhm.
And that was not a good thing, because Tonya, she's good at everything.
Right.
And for me to fail at something, that my life, literally everything was falling apart.
Yeah.
And it wasn't falling apart quietly. It was falling apart in front of everybody.
Wow.
And so that shift happened for me. It was necessary. It was the place in which I started my freedom journey.
Mm-hmm.
It was the place in which I learned unconditional love. It was my life. I say that it was the best, worst thing that has ever happened to me.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's worse.
It is I don't wish it upon my worst enemy, but it was the best, worst thing that could ever happen to me. My life is completely different, and that was the catalyst.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Best, worst. I think we can all attest to Chandra, the best, worst, right? Like that is so true, because in such tragedy
Yeah.
and such trauma, and for you was public, right? And for you, Chandra, even whatever the experience was, you were able to, as you mentioned, God placed people in your life to help you through that process. And it is such a blessing to be able to have those specific people. And what God does is just truly amazing out of that best, worst, because not only is He showing us who we are, most importantly, He's showing us who He is.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And if God can get us through the worst of the worst of the worst, then we make it through that, we know that through that experience, if something were to come up, we have the experience and the faith to know
Yeah.
that He could do it again,
Yeah.
right? So I truly believe that without, in some form of shifts, there also comes healing,
Yes.
right? So tell me about the healing process of perhaps in that shift for you guys.
Yeah. Oh wow. Um. Oh wow.
What were some things you think you maybe had to perhaps heal from?
I had to accept who I was. I just had to accept all of me.
Yeah.
That was most of the healing. I had to learn I couldn't hide anymore. And I had to receive love, because that was one thing that I didn't share, because I didn't know how to receive love.
Yeah.
Right. And I just thought that sometimes people, when they would come to me, it's because they were being nosy or they wanted to,
Yeah.
just get in the business. But I had to realize that that's not everybody. Right. And I had to receive love. Is that still a struggle? Yes. I'm not going to lie. Right. Because it's never been, I was always hard. Right. But I had to receive love, receive encouragement, receive words. And then I just had to get in the word. I think that's one thing that you hear it all the time, and people say, okay, you're saying this, but I really had to get in the word and find what works for me. Find when I can hear God talk to me, right? Block out all the noise. I would always, also part of my healing was stop being so busy. Because one of my distractions to overcome the hurt and the pain was stay busy, Chan. Stay busy. Just be busy, 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 busy. And I had to, because I knew that if I got quiet, I would hear everything I didn't want to hear.
Right.
Or I would see everything I didn't want to see. But when I know now when I need to have that quiet time, I get in the word, because that's my distraction. That's my healing. That's where I get it from. But also the healing for me is just not only just owning who I am, but now being transparent to those that love me.
Right.
And being honest to those who love me. And being honest with myself, saying, no, I'm not going to accept.
Right.
Or, versus saying, Okay, whatever you throw at me, I'm gonna take. No, I don't
Yeah.
have to accept it. I'm God's
Yeah.
daughter. I don't have to.
Right.
I'm better and greater than that. So
Yeah.
that was part of my healing.
When you say that there was some things like you mentioned about hard to receive,
Yeah.
like love, right? What was it that you think made it hard for you to receive?
I felt like people wanted things from me all the time. It was always want from
Yeah.
Chan. And I think, I've had sessions with you before where I was like, I don't even go to marketing or just work events or friend events because even though it's a networking event, people will
Yeah.
come and focus on what they can get from me. So it was never enjoyable. It was never
Right.
enjoyable. I wanted to just go and be like a participant like everyone else.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? But sometimes I feel like my gift was a curse
Right.
because people wanted, I don't want to say take advantage of the gift, but they did.
Yeah.
You know? And because I'm a people pleaser, instead of saying, oh, just schedule time with me, I'm like, sure, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. And I've missed the entire event, right? Or I've missed what was happening. So when I say receive love, it's now saying that everyone that comes to me is not coming to me just to get something out of me.
Right. Right. I see what you mean.
They want to pour into me too. So receive that pouring,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not just, hey, I want to get something from you. Hey,
Yeah.
what do you want? Can you send me this? Can you email this to me? It's, hey, I just want to talk to you, Chan. How you doing?
Yeah.
But I've always had a block because that's how I felt people would always come to me.
And this is what I hear you say, like you are truly, when you say you're accepting you, it's like you're valuing
Who I am.
who you are and the gifts that God has given you, right? It makes me think of the scripture where it says you don't cast your pearls to swine, right? Pearls are this precious stone that you put it under pigs, like you put anything under pigs,
That's
baby, they
right.
gonna trample, they gonna
Right.
eat, they gonna roll over it in the dirt, they're gonna treat it like nothing.
Right.
And so the old saying, you teach people how to treat you, but if you don't know how to treat yourself,
That's right.
it's a challenge to set those boundaries, as you mentioned, like say no. So it's good to have that for yourself and to be around people that appreciate who you are.
Just
So-
acknowledge what your boundaries are.
Exactly. You have to be able to do that. And I think that's beautiful that you've found that
Yeah.
you're no longer a people pleaser,
no,
right?
right.
That's not who you are. And so sometimes that thing may come up, but you don't have to accept it because that's just not who you are. So thank you for sharing that.
thank
What
you.
do you have to share?
Listen.
the little laugh. Sorry.
Because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, when I tell her this stuff, she's not going to believe me. She's going to say, that's not you. But I love that response.
Yeah.
Because the things I had to heal from, I had walls up so high and they were so thick that wrecking balls couldn't get through because wrecking balls tried and they just bounced off. No one, I didn't allow anyone in. It was this way and don't be not nice to me because I could cut you off.
Yeah.
Like
AT&T.
without you ever knowing about it.
Yeah.
And you thinking your call is going through and they are not. That was who I could be. And I didn't trust people.
Yeah.
And so all of that had to come down. And all of it, when I say it was my journey to freedom, all of those things came down, all of those things, all of the hurts, all of that. And I love that you, Chandra, that you said I had to learn to receive love because I remember the day that God, for a year, God told me, Tonya, I love you. He wouldn't say anything else to me.
Wow.
I would ask him a question. I would ask him what I should do about this or where I should go or how to, whatever. And he would say, Tonya, do you know I love you? And I'd be like, oh, that's so sweet, God. And then I'd feel good. And I remember, wait a minute, you didn't answer my question. And for a while, it was really sweet that he was saying, Tonya, I love you. But then I got to the point, look here, you ain't answering I need answers.
Yes.
I keep coming to you and you're not answering my questions. You keep telling me you love me. I know you love me. And he would just say, Tonya, I love you. And I was like, Father, I know you love me.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, but you know what? I love you. A year. Clearly I'm slow. So I remember this day. I was in my car. The top was down. It was beautiful. I was driving on 75 and I was talking to the Lord saying, God, where we going to go today? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And he said, Tonya, I love you. And it was in that moment that I actually received it.
Wow.
Because while I believed it here, and I used to go around telling
Yeah.
people God loves him some Tonya. God loves him some Tonya. I said it all the time.
Yeah.
And it was here, but it never got here.
Right.
And it was in that moment that it got here. And when it got here, you could not tell me anything. That revelation of his love for me changed my life.
Yeah.
And I think that it was the reason that I was able. So now what people receive is they're like, Pastor Tonya, how do you love people? Easy, because it's not me. What you are getting is the overflow of what I have received from him.
Yeah.
He has poured his love. He has poured it out on me so much, and I have been able to receive it to such a degree that there is an overflow. And so what you get is not me.
Yes. Yes.
Because
You want God's love, okay? Through me. That's what you want.
But that's the beautiful thing is that the things that he does, the forgiveness. I could hold a grudge. You could have been dead, gone, and your grandchildren come, and I would have still been upset.
Yeah.
That is the degree to which I could hold a grudge. Now, somebody says or does something, oh, okay, Tonya, will you forgive me? And you don't really even have to ask me. And I've already done it.
Yeah.
Because I finally fully received his forgiveness. And when I fully receive what he has, it's so much and it's so big, it can't help but to overflow to everyone else. So when I coach people and they tell me they struggle with forgiveness, I ask them, have you fully received God's forgiveness for you?
That's huge.
Because if you haven't, that's why you're struggling, because you're trying to do it in and of yourself.
Yes.
And you're not relying on him to do it through you. None of the stuff, none of it is from me. It is all him through me.
Yeah.
So when he told you, you can always find yourself in me.
Always. Yes, exactly. That's why I was like, let me get myself together before I'm like falling out on this couch. I mean, God's love. It makes me think of the scripture, the greatest commandment. Jesus says, love God with all your heart, with all your soul and your might, right? And love your neighbor as you love yourself. 3 different types of relationships there. When we love God, he teaches us how to love ourselves, which then overflows to other people, right? And forgiveness is a major part of that. Love is a major part of that. And I love how God consistently spoke that to you, to not just tell you, but he wanted you to get it and understand. And I think when a lot of times in our faith walk, people often feel like they've messed up so much that God doesn't love them anymore, right? Or I have to perform. If I have to perform in my earthly relationships for whatever reason, surely I have to perform for God. Like in order for him to accept me and to love me because of the fear of rejection. And I remember, I feel this in my spirit because perhaps somebody is watching this right now and they're really struggling, like God couldn't possibly forgive me for that. He couldn't possibly love me for that. And I remember going through some major experiences in my life, like after my first husband passed away and quickly after that I remarried only to get a divorce, right? And it was just like, God, you couldn't possibly love me through this mess. Like you couldn't, like you promised me I would marry again. I went ahead of you, but surely you're not going to be able to grant me this blessing. And it was in that moment where it was the experience of, I didn't find out how much God loved me, not in my perfection, but it was in my mess. It was in the mess.
That's right.
So for someone that is watching, you hearing God, it's a reminder.
Yeah.
It's a sweet reminder that he loves you.
Yes.
He has forgiven you. He wants you to forgive yourself and offer that forgiveness to others so you can experience freedom.
And healing, you know.
And healing, yes.
It was one thing I had to also learn is he's daddy, so he's going to correct you.
Yes. I love that.
And that was part of the healing for me too, right? Because I would always use the excuse, my busyness was my worship to God. And he was like, stop saying that. I never told you to say that. I never told, that's not, you creating that busyness. I didn't create the business for you. But I would always use the excuse, oh, that's my worship. You know, my business is my worship. And he was like, I need you to stop that because that's not what I told you, Chan. That's not. You're creating that because you're trying to ignore something else. And we're going to find out what that something else is.
Exactly.
And so I've also learned that his love also means correction. And I had to receive that correction and be okay with it. And to know that he sees best for me. Right? And if I receive that correction, I can move forward and I can be okay with that.
That's powerful. That is so powerful. And with this shift, with this healing, comes perhaps the encouragement. You mentioned encouraging others. But first, who encouraged you? You mentioned Pastor Tonya was part of that. And so how were you able to turn your experience in encouraging others?
Yeah, that's great. So if we talk about who encouraged me, I have to be really honest, is our pastor. It's our pastor. When I didn't want to discuss my issues with my friends, he says, they're your girls. They'll get it. That's the crew that's going to carry you. And I said, okay. He says, Pastor Tonya, that's the lady that's going to carry you. That's your girl. They're going to carry you. Like Pastor Cardell, they're going to carry you, Chan. Don't worry about that. So I had to receive that. Then once I got the encouragement, then Pastor said, now I need you to know that your husband is going to be your number one cheerleader. He's going to be one praying for you. He's the one that's going to, when you don't want to hear it's going to be okay, he's going to tell you it's okay. When you don't even want to see his face, he's going to be in your face. Like, he's the one, Chan, you need to not push him away. So that was one. So if I would rate my encouragers, my husband was my first one, right? Even though Pastor pushed me to those people. But what it also did after receiving that encouragement is that it put me in a place now where I know where I belong, and that's encouraging others. And that's why I do the executive coaching. Like, I didn't know that was my calling. I didn't know my calling was to help leaders be great leaders. And even to the point where I'm at work and I'm doing things at work and they're like, we create a position just for you. And I'm like, what? No, leaders love coming to talk to you. You coach them, you mentor them, you've helped people get promotions. They come to you about anything. We create a position just for you. And I said, someone told me years ago that that's what I'll be doing, that I'll be coaching leaders to be great. I just didn't want to accept it because I didn't see me as being great.
Right.
So I put my challenges and put it in front of my face and said, and that's where my imposter syndrome came in. It's like, I'm not that great to be telling others to be great. You know, I have issues, but then I realized my issues is what's helping me help others realize their potential and what they can do. And so that's how I'm able to encourage others, even in my 9 to 5. It's just, I'm in meetings all day speaking to leaders and mentoring them and telling them, you can do this. This is what leadership looks like. This is what the qualities of a great leader looks like. What can I do? What are the struggles you have? What are the issues and challenges you're dealing with? So being able to do that and owning that, that's how I can now encourage others. But I didn't know that that's what my calling was. I didn't know that all of the crap that I had to go through in the past was preparing me for today. And that's something I had to learn. But also I didn't know that the people who always had my back were those who were encouraging me. And I just was being hard-headed about it. I didn't want to go to them. You know, look, she's looking. But
I used to force her to hug me.
Yes, I didn't like hugs. I was like, hugging you? What is hugs? No. But I do better now. I do better now.
That's a real friend.
I do better now, right? But it's accepting those people in your life to encourage you. I didn't know how to receive love. I didn't know how to receive encouragement. I didn't, and now I know how.
And one thing I've learned about you too, Chandra, is that you're so, like you said, you're so good at so many things, and it's everything. It comes so natural to you, and I think people often see that as as a way of, oh, well, you know, she got it, because you make it look easy,
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
But what I love, I mean, what I absolutely love is that you have truly found yourself
Yeah.
in God,
Yeah.
and that you know your value, and that's what's really important. And to be able to use that gift for the kingdom
Yeah.
and also in the marketplace, you know, and get paid for it, right? But not just that, you're blessing so many people in different avenues and different areas. So I love to hear that.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that you shared that.
Thank you.
That is so beautiful. I'm so, you know, we don't talk all the time, but I'm
don't.
telling you, I'm like, I'm gonna get you on the couch because I'm gonna find out about you.
You'll find out some stuff.
I'm gonna find out about
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it's a therapy session with me.
Yes, Pastor
So,
Tonya.
who encouraged me? I would have to say, you know what? Our pastors, but Pastor Derek yelled at me.
Fact, me
He
too.
gonna hear this.
He yells at the good ones, huh?
You know he yelled at me.
Look, to say he's not here to defend himself, it don't matter, huh?
It don't matter.
When he hear it, he gonna be sitting there saying, "Yeah, I did."
I sure did.
But it was what was necessary.
Yeah.
But I would say I think when I was able to fully receive God's love for me, and that started pouring out,
Yeah.
it allowed, the walls came down. And so all of the people that had been there, I could see them. All of the people who were, because the walls weren't just keeping people out and me safe, it was keeping the love out, and it was keeping me in. And so when that happened, I can't even tell you the amount of what period of time it was. There were just people there all around. And I think it was because I started loving, I was being kind, and I was encouraging. I was able to see it in return. Not that
Yeah.
it wasn't there already, but I was actually able to see it and fully receive it from people. So it was everybody, because everybody, again, my mess was public.
Yeah.
And so it was everybody always checking in. And even if their motives weren't right, I didn't perceive it that way.
Yeah.
Because I just took everything in as, okay, that person's loving on me, and it's because I'm going to love on them. And I was in this place that allowed me to fully receive whatever was given to me. And I took it as being from the Lord. Not, so even if their motives weren't right, it didn't matter to me.
Right,
Because the
right.
way it came, the lens, that's the way it is. Thank you, Father. The lens that I was perceiving it through was a lens of love.
Yeah.
And because it was a lens of love, that's what I got. Because it was a lens of encouragement, that's what I perceived, whether it was their intention or not. So there were so many people. There was my best friend. There was our pastors. My siblings were ready to fight. There was
good on family
actually
for
a
you,
lot
yeah.
of people who were ready to fight.
Yeah.
And I had to pull them back and
Right,
say, no, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
That is not what God has told me to do. So you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so God was talking to me the entire time. My biggest encouragement was him. But I got to hear him through so many people in so many different ways. I could probably try to make a list, but I don't even know, because everything that was coming to me at that point in time was encouragement, because the lens that was over my heart had changed.
Wow. That's huge.
And that's what made the difference. So
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know if that was a good answer to you.
No, that was that's huge.
I'll tell you this, revelation
Yeah.
for me that you just gave me is that the people were already there. I just didn't see them. You know, I think a lot of times with healing, the people that God has placed in your life, you're so hurt.
Yeah.
That
You don't
that
see
the
it.
that you don't see it, that you don't see the support, you don't see the encouragement, you don't
Right,
see the help
right.
or the love, because the lens that you have is blocking it, and you see it in one way. You either see they're loving you too much, or they're not loving me enough and don't understand me, right? And so to see that, now that I think about my life, or just any person's situation I've been a part of, people have always been there.
They've always been
They've
there.
always been there.
Yeah.
You just didn't know because you didn't see.
You didn't see.
That's
Yeah,
so
perception.
good.
Yeah.
Perception.
That's huge, and God, He changes that.
Yeah.
He shifts that as we're going through those experiences, and whether that's borrowed faith or you experience that you're on your own through reading God's word, through spending time through worship, through people. He has a way to make sure that He makes His presence known in your life. Through the faith walk, through the faith walk, right? So, ladies, I mean, such powerful stories and testimonies about your S.H.E experience and your faith walk. And one thing on the couch I love to do is not just about inspiration, transformation, but also from a practical standpoint. So I have your grab your journal moment, right? So from a practical standpoint, as my listeners, as you guys are listening right now, grab your journals, because I want them to be able to share some practical things that you guys can do if you're experiencing perhaps a shift, if you're in the throes of healing, if you're needing encouragement. What is maybe a practical thing that someone can do in order to continue their journey, start that journey? What do you guys thoughts about that?
Good. I can tell you what I did because I was in that with that journal.
Yeah.
I wrote every feeling I had.
Yeah.
I needed to see it because if I could see it, I can acknowledge it and I can attack it and pray on those feelings.
Yeah.
And it's whatever feeling I had at that moment.
Yeah.
So if I was hurt, God, I'm hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I
love
said
that.
exactly why I'm hurt, right? Because I'm learning how to be that fervent prayer, right? But for me, writing it down allowed me to see exactly what I need to pray about versus just trying to come up with something in my mind.
Right.
So I would say that what helped me, if you're journaling, is be okay with writing your feelings down because it's okay to feel. It's really okay to feel. Don't hide that.
Yeah.
Write and if you have to write it down to see it, and pray over that particular thing at that moment. And then you don't have to wait to the end of the day. You know, I have a grateful journal, and if it's during the day and I'm feeling hurt, I write it down immediately. If it's something I think I made a mistake, I write it immediately, because then when I get ready to pray about it, everything that I felt that day, whether I'm grateful, whether I feel like a failure, whatever it is, I can go to God on those specific things every day and look at it. And I'm not trying to think of how my day went.
That's good.
I can open up my journal, or even use your phone or your notes, and I can open it up and say, God, I'm praying about what happened at 9 a.m., what happened at 9:10, what happened at 9:12, I'm praying about these things because I want to bring everything to you, even though you already know, God. I'm opening my mouth, and I'm bringing these to you because I need to be able to overcome this and have a redo tomorrow.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That is so practical. One, as a therapist, I certainly advocate for, and I love what you mentioned too. Even not waiting until the end of the day, like write it down right then and there. You're not going to really think about it later on. It's probably you have 20 million things you got going on, but in that moment, it signifies significance, right? Like, this is so significant to me. I felt this very intense emotion. I felt anger. I felt upset. I felt frustrated, and being able to pair that with prayer is so powerful. So thank you for sharing that. That's a powerful,
Thank you.
practical tool.
Thank you.
Pastor Tonya.
My practical might not sound practical, but it is hear God. And people think, oh, well, that's spiritual. No, it's really practical. Faith comes by hearing. And so if you learn to hear God, and you might say, I don't know if I know how to do that. Well, first of all, if you are a believer, you do know how to do it because you had to hear him to receive him in the first place.
Yeah.
So you know how to hear him. We just don't practice hearing him.
Yeah.
And so I would say practice hearing him. How do I do that? Well, sometimes it's just a thought that comes to your head and you're like, where did that come from? And when I was first practicing hearing God, I would be driving and I would hear turn left. And so I would just turn left. Didn't know why I was turning left. I would just turn left because when you practice makes perfect.
Yes.
Perfect is not without flaw.
Right.
Perfect is mature.
Yeah. Ooh, I
So
like that.
when you practice, you get mature in a thing and you grow in that thing. And then when it's the little things that you've heard God about, when he speaks the big thing, you hear him more clearly. You're not saying, God, was that you? Was that me? Was that the enemy? First of all, the enemy, if it's going to give you anything related to the fruit of the
Yes.
Spirit, it is not the
It's not.
enemy. So am I hearing God? Is the result of what you heard producing any of the fruits of the Spirit that are in
Yeah.
Galatians 5? If so,
Right.
is it Galatians or Ephesians?
It's Galatians.
If it's producing
Yeah.
love, joy, peace, long suffering, patience, if it's producing any of that, then it's God.
Absolutely.
Practice hearing God, because when we hear him, we have faith. That's where faith comes from, is us
Yes.
hearing God.
I love
So
that.
that would be my practical tool. So when you're praying, when you write down the things that are going on and that you're dealing with, hear what God has to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We often take things to him, but we never stop to hear what he has to say
Yeah.
about that moment. You might say, God, I feel insignificant in this situation. That's great. But what does he say about what was happening in that moment? Because
Yeah.
oftentimes we don't see
Yes.
what he sees. And when he speaks to us, he shows us things that we may have had a lens over our heart
Yeah.
that kept us from seeing, or we just weren't in the right position to
Right.
see.
Right.
Because he can see everything. When we hear him, it changes.
Yes.
It does.
It changes us.
It does. It changes everything.
It's a different
And
perspective.
yeah, and when you say faith comes by hearing, the other part, faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. And when we sit with God, perhaps he will direct us to his word that reminds us the replacement for, if you're feeling this way, well,
Right.
no, that's not what I said about you. This is who you are. Well, I feel like a failure. Well, or I can't do that. Well, I can do all things through
Absolutely.
Christ who strengthens me. So he has an answer for everything.
Everything.
And he tailor makes it for our situation.
He does.
He cares about everything. I always say, people often say, don't sweat the small stuff. God sweats everything.
Yes, he does.
Small things, details. And I'm so grateful that he does, because we need that. I want him in the details, because we miss things sometimes, right? But I think from a practical standpoint, being able to journal, being able to hear God, those are some very powerful practical tools on your faith walk. So I really want you guys to take this segment, this message today, She Walks by Faith, just hearing Chandra, just hearing Pastor Tonya's story of how they've overcome through the shift, through the healing, through the encouragement. I'm sure you have some individuals in your life, or if not, perhaps pray and ask God to bring the right people in your life to fully, to help encourage you. If you have to borrow faith, we've all had to experience that at some point in our lives. And so you'll continue to get there. Just keep trusting him. Just know that you have women, examples before you, men, great men before you, who've also walked the walk. So we want you to be encouraged today. So Chandra, Pastor Tonya, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this couch. It's been so awesome. I love to hear just more in depth of, we go to the same church, but to sit down with you ladies and to hear about your story, I mean, it was just truly refreshing. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us.
You.
Yeah,
It was
absolutely.
such a joy.
Yes, good. All right, well, we'll see you guys next time. Another segment of On the Couch with Dr. E. Really appreciate it. I hope this really blessed you. If it has, let us know how. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.